Welcome to Supply Circles, stories from the innovators, disruptors and improvers in supply chain management today. Brought to you by AI Group.
Welcome back to Supply Circles. I'm James Scotland, coming to you today from Yunganbar country. And this is the podcast that asks the question, how can we in Australia create supply chains that are resilient and sustainable at a time when we are implementing the challenges of the 3 Ds? Digitalisation to keep up with your peers in your industry and to build efficiency into your business. Decarbonisation to meet your legal requirements and targets by 2050 and in some states 2045. And diversification to build sustainability into our business offerings and processes by reducing the dependence on single relationships, whether it's a product, a technology, a supply chain or an export market. You might recall that in episode 40, Dr. Jeff Wilson, AI Group's chief economist, told us that the next 2 years will see softening demands in our markets and sales hard to come by, increasing costs due to inflationary pressures, and the urgent need to improve processes and operations in order to protect our margins. He told us businesses will be required to innovate across sales and operations, and we would need new business models and offerings and processes. It seems the word is our businesses will need to be structured and operating as modern, market-responsive, innovative businesses. So today I'm keen to talk about that. I'm keen to talk about the much used and often misunderstood term innovation. My guest today is the always impressive and interesting David K. Martin, AI Group's Director of Emerging Industries and Innovation, and a valued colleague of mine. I'm going to ask him, not surprisingly, about emerging industries, new business models and innovation. So hello, David. Welcome to the show. Good to have you on the show finally.
Thank you, James. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. And I have to say, looking at the intro, there has been some truly amazing people before me. So I'm amongst a group of luminaries when it comes to this topic area.
We try to find interesting and informative people, and we have some fun along the way. And so you'll fit in perfectly. Let's start at the beginning. At the very beginning, what is innovation? How do you define it?
What a loaded word these days. It's a word that I think that many people seem to consider very much like pixie dust that you sprinkle over things and it will fix everything that ails you. At its most simple, innovation to me is the commercial application of intellectual property that is undertaken in a novel way, that will result in new business models, pathways, processes and services. It is a really overblown and complicated discussion point for many people, but really it's how we do things differently that results in something new and novel for a business moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's the point that you and I have talked about over many years, that innovation can be big and, earth-shattering and industry-shifting, or it could just be a good new process that sustains your business.
Absolutely. And I think this is one of the challenges that you have nailed on the head here is, for many people, innovation is thinking about something that is going to change an industry at large, that is going to be a truly novel product. But there is incremental innovation, which is just as important for a business as much as, the big end of the big bangs and the big explosive, exciting things that everyone thinks of when they think of innovation.
And sometimes they're the most satisfying. I in my opinion, I'm just impressed by those. Regular listeners will recall me quoting a reliable source. I can't remember where I got it from, but I knew that I thought, well, I like that source. And the quote is, the pace of change will never be this slow again. In other words, the heap of changes we've seen over the last few years is going to be nothing compared to what's coming. What's driving this innovation and rapid change? Is it business or academia, government? What's going on?
That's a fantastic question. And I guess my term that I love that represents this is it's called leadership at the speed of thought. In the past, leaders actually in many respects have had the opportunity to take the information in, have 85% of the key data that they need to make a key decision on. But the reality is these days, leaders, whether they're in small organizations or large, have to be completely comfortable with ambiguity and the level of volatility out there, make key decisions with the information that they have at hand, which might only be 40 or 50% of what they really want or need, and feel comfortable making those decisions and then pivoting and changing if, as further information comes to hand, that, they have to feel comfortable with that type of change. And people who are uncomfortable and with uncertainty and ambiguity, I think in leadership positions are usually quite comfortable with the speed of innovation. Now, what's causing all of this? I think it's just that at the current moment, we're seeing a level of upheaval and change that is unprecedented since the last industrial revolution. And a whole range of critical issues and areas have actually kind of occurring now, especially in Australia and facing Australian businesses all at the same time. So digitalisation has absolutely changed how we undertake our businesses, but decarbonisation is also changing how we undertake businesses. The interrelated and interdependence of businesses across the globe and the expectation that you should be able to work with each other in real time has also changed how we do things. But what I'm finding in many respects is that many of the business models that people operate in this current environment no longer fit for purpose. But post-COVID and all the other challenges people are facing, very few people have actually taken that step backwards, reflected where they are, understand what their customers are looking for, and then readapted and changed the position of the organisation to make sure that it's ready for what's coming next. And ironically, that is why the emerging industries is certainly in my title. For many people, emerging industries is things like quantum computing and some of the medtech innovation that we see out there. But for me, emerging industries in my current role is how might we assist our members and industry at large to emerge from their previous business models to take on the new business models that are going to thrive in the world of the 3Ds that you described before.
You mentioned that we live in unprecedented times, and I got a Christmas card from a supply chain manager that said, "May your year ahead be precedented."
That's excellent.
Supply chain joke, maybe.
No. I think most people would like a measure of certainty, but yes, definitely, you were not going to get it.
I wish you precedence. We'll come back to business models. I'm really keen on that and emerging industries. But before we do, is Australia good at innovation? You've been working across the whole nation for a long time. Are we good at it?
That's a fantastic question. And there's two ways of looking at it. So people sometimes correlate research and development with innovation. I don't. I think R&D is a particularly important part of the innovation life cycle.
Wow. Are you being controversial there?
No, not at all, actually. I think for many people, they say research and development is innovation. It isn't. Research and development is the creation of novel intellectual property. For me, innovation is how that's actually applied within a business, and did it result in a novel new product or service or business model that's gone to market. Mm-hmm. So for Australia is absolutely world class when it comes to creating research and development in our universities and our public sector research sector in general. It's not so great at commercialization. And so when we look at, overall the statistics, it shows that we're very strong in research, but we're not really crash hot when it comes to our research sector of commercializing. And I know there's a number of programs in place trying to fix that. When it comes to businesses, I think, again, we're very early adopters and we can actually apply novel technology and R&D in a innovative and clever way. So we absolutely have quite a lot of innovative and clever businesses out there doing different and interesting things. I think one of the key things, which is an interesting thing, is I've sat in on a number of workshops recently talking to people about this transformation that's undergoing in our sectors. And what I'm hearing back is a lot of frustration quite often from the middle management about the executive and the board about innovation in their organizations and the transformation of their business models. And what we're hearing from them is that boards are feeling somewhat unskilled or inexperienced or unaware of what's happening when it comes to decarbonisation, digitalisation, in other words. And there's a little bit of paralysis in place from people taking the critical steps, whether it's business model transformation or taking on board new novel technologies that can improve the level of productivity in an organisation. So this is an interesting thing. Is Australia an innovative country? I certainly think there are definitely innovative companies. And when I say that, it's manufacturing, it's services, it's a whole range of other things. It's not just the startup sector where we see innovation. But I think in many respects, just the sheer speed of change and a range of other things is hampering our ability to really move forward in an exciting way.
That's a great answer. And I've made some notes. We'll circle back to many of those, including the board feeling unskilled and the need for business models. Staying at the meta level for a second, and thank you for that answer, but people often think of innovation in terms of hard assets. You know, they think we need to buy new technology or improve our machine utilization, maybe buy some AI and robotics, barcodes, QR codes, use of iPads in the place of order forms, better end of life, all those sort of hard asset type innovations. But a recent report by Gartner said that the new phase of innovation, especially for supply chain managers, will increasingly be in the softer assets, getting more from people, more from understanding their customer, more from understanding their employees, better brand management, as David Schliffel told us a couple of episodes again, maximizing employee engagement and output, sometimes called the human economic value. Those sort of things, they're sort of the people part of the business rather than the assets part of the business. I would assume that there's plenty of room for innovation in both. But what are you seeing? Are you seeing the next big leap in people or assets?
Okay, thanks, James. That's an excellent question, and the answer is both. So I think one of the key areas actually when it comes, and tying back to one of the key points that you made at the start, which is the speed of innovation that we're seeing out there and the speed of transformation, is what we're actually starting to find is that technology is now moving so fast and so aggressively in many different areas, is people are actually struggling to keep up with what they're being provided. So there's an information overload with regards to data. And the key thing is there's a big difference between data and knowledge and insight. So many businesses are very data rich, but they're not insight and knowledge rich, which allows people to make critical decisions which are going to delight their customers and also come up with products and services that are going to be what their clients need. But absolutely, I think there's a critical part around people in the program. It's one of the current terms that I've seen tossed.
I think that was Gartner's point, that we have so much stuff now. You know, we've got data.
Absolutely.
But now we've got to turn to the people and say, okay, now let's start maximizing the use of what we've got.
So I absolutely agree. And one of the interesting terms I've seen bandied around in the last 6 months is we all might know what Industry 4.0 is, which is the fourth industrial revolution and the digitalization of processes. We're now hearing Industry 5.0. And Industry 5.0 is very much focused on what you covered off on, which is making sure people are at the center of the process when it comes to the design and to their involvement with these new and novel technologies, and making sure that further technology design and other things puts people in the center of them, because just the sheer overload and adaptability. And humans, the number one thing that humans are fantastic at, and why we are where we are in the food chain, so to speak, is our adaptability. But things are moving so fast and so overwhelmingly, by not including them in that critical part, yes, there is a danger that we will not get the productivity increases we want to see, and making sure that you keep the skilled workers that you absolutely require in the organisation.
And a question without notice, DK Martin.
I'm sorry, the reason I have a K in my name is because David Martin is almost as common as John Smith. So It's an easier way for people to find me on LinkedIn.
No, I love it. DK Lilly, by the way. There's nothing wrong with being called DK. Anyway, a question without notice. According to, I think the Germans came up with it, the first industrial revolution was coal and steam engine. The second one was electricity and mobility. The third one was computerization. And the fourth, Industry 4, is digitalization. And now we're moving into 5. I would argue, for the hell of it, that all of that is a progression from Industry 1, and we are entering Industry 2. It is a completely different world ahead. And that's why innovation is going to happen so fast, because we're going into a different world.
Absolutely.
Discuss.
Discuss. It is a completely different world, you know, when you have systems that talk to each other without human intervention, you know. So if you're sitting in someone's major supply chain and your system talks to their ERP systems and orders are automatically tallied and put in place, and
it's not a progression from industry from the coal engine, is it? I mean,
no.
It's just not.
No, so we've seen drones in warfare and drones in general use, and many of those are now not having a human in the circuit, and because they are able to do the job just better and get on with that. So one of the key and interesting questions really is where does humans actually sit in that cycle and that process and in making something, and where should they be better used? And, we hear that artificial intelligence and other things brings about some efficiency gains. There's also the other challenge. It also brings about more rubbish. One of my favorite cartoons of the last couple of weeks is Sam, who uses artificial intelligence to create an email 6 pages long based on 3 facts, and Jane, who then gets that and asks the artificial intelligence to push it back down into the 3 lines he should have originally sent out. So where do humans figure? And it's actually one of the concerns with artificial intelligence is that artificial intelligence is actually based on huge data sets. Now, in the future, if those data sets are actually created by artificial intelligence, there's the danger of an artificial intelligence spiral of less and less and poorer quality data to actually create these data sets on.
Yeah, we've talked on this podcast before about the danger of accidental bias. You end up with a bias loop that is not right. You end up with a totally wrong answer, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think the key question is, in a future where artificial intelligence and a whole range of other technologies can do jobs just as well as humans, what is the role of humans in that particular future? And that's an exciting and interesting insight. And usually there's no middle ground. It's either utopia and we all get to lounge around on banana chairs drinking daiquiris.
You have a strange utopia there, Red David.
Or that's some people's utopias. It's definitely not mine. And on the other hand, it's, a dystopian. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. And in fact, I think it's very hard it's very hard and challenging actually to understand what that looks like when things are moving so fast and so quickly, and how technology is going to be used in such an unexpected way. I always enjoy my time with futurists. But, I also enjoy looking at what futurists from 1900s were saying about what the future would look like and when. And it's so different. And it's so very, very, you just can't even imagine what it looks like.
I've bumped into my first futurist in the early 90s, and they were talking about 20 years' time. And a lot of it came true. We'd be using our phones to book airfares and things like that. And I thought, I'd love to be a futurist. Wouldn't that be fun? But boy, it's difficult. Now, and your answers indicate why boards and management are struggling with this, because it's so unclear. And maybe that position of saying the best way to see it is to see it as a completely new world. It's a brand new world, not Industry 5, but rather Industry 2. It's a complete revolution. Maybe we should call this podcast, Industry 2 is coming or something.
I absolutely as well too. And just getting back to the boards, I think when I think about most companies that are innovative, there's always the 5% that are ahead of the curve. The leaders that are adaptive and are doing new things all the time. And that's with regards to their business models, how they staff, how they skill them, how they create new products and services. Then there's the next 5% that want to be that 5%, and they're snapping at their heels. And there's a lot of people who will come along for the ride after that time. I think the challenge, though, is that in the next year, what we're going to see is that a lot of people's platforms are on fire, which you've talked about at length with many of your other excellent podcasts, James, which is the 3Ds. Mm. We now have legislation coming in within the year that's going to require many of our companies to report their greenhouse gas emissions. And most of the smaller people go, yep, that's great. But what they don't understand is that if they're in the supply chain of Bunnings or West Farmers, they're going to have to provide their data on carbon emissions to these large entities within the next 18 months. So if you haven't undergone the digitalisation journey, and there's no decarbonisation without digitalisation, you're going to be in a world of challenging times, actually. And suddenly people will go, well, innovation will save me. Actually, what you really need to do is take that objective step back and say, what does my business look like as a sustainable going concern from 5 years' time? And I'm not talking about green sustainability. I'm talking about profitable and with revenue and with staff and with products customers want, and then work your way back there.
And with a social license where government and customers are still buying our stuff because we've got responsible carbon footprints and things like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's only then when they take that time. But so many executives, and you've worked with so many people in this space, James, like me, they're feeling overwhelmed post-COVID. They're in the process of handing over their businesses to the kids, finding skilled people. Energy prices have gone up 25%. So when we talk about the level of innovation and boards and executives feeling a little bit paralyzed, and they also don't have a lot of money available now to make these key decisions. They want to make the right one, but it's paralysis quite now over analysis and not feeling comfortable with understanding what's coming.
I just realised that I haven't introduced you to the listening audience, although many would know you, but I should introduce you to a degree. Couldn't possibly cover your CV because it's just one of those CVs, overachiever. He doesn't sit around in the banana chair or with the banana daiquiri, whatever it was. Let me tell people about you. Dave has been part of the Australian innovation ecosystem for over 15 years. He's worked at the executive level across multiple industries and large and small organisations. His thing is facilitating innovative solutions to complex and wicked problems. In the time I've known David, he has worked in innovative solutions in major projects worth about $88 billion. He has delivered financial assistance of over $22 million to innovative SMEs and pulled together, according to his CV, over 150 commercially astute bleeding-edge research industry collaborations. He recently led an international delegation to Canada, UK, Denmark, Belgium and France to obtain an intimate understanding of the global quantum and semiconductor industry. And he was seconded to the Semiconductor Sector Service Bureau to provide strategic and operational support during its startup stage. David is an accomplished innovator and facilitator of innovation, and it's really good to have you on the show, David. I've got to say that. I wanted to ask you for ages. The semiconductor industry is a major supply chain story of the last few years. We've focused on the challenges and the hiccups and the problems. Tell me about the international delegations. It must have been fascinating to lead.
It absolutely was a fascinating opportunity to see how things are done around the rest of the world. And as you pointed out, semiconductors are a critical technology, actually, more than most other critical technologies. It's the thing that you will find in your fridge, in the nose cones of missiles. But there is, what was actually fascinating with COVID is that so there are so many computer chips actually that sit in cars. One of the reasons why cars in the world actually started blowing out with regards to their delivery times wasn't so much the fact that transport networks were challenged in the logistics things, but they just couldn't get access to a sufficient level of semiconductors to put into the actual cars because they're in everything now. So one of the reasons,
and the more advanced the cars get, the more that we even low level cars now have got a massive of semiconductors, and electric vehicles have got even more than internal combustion engine.
Absolutely, and so they're in everything now. But there was a number of reasons I was going overseas. So the first was to get an understanding. Australia is actually, like in many cases, a global leader in the development of quantum technology. And I wanted to get an understanding of what was happening around the planet with regards to the progression of that technology to a commercial reality, and what other countries were doing to support their businesses and industry in this particular space, as well as get an understanding as well with semiconductors and what was happening around the world. And what I actually found is, as usual, Australia, and I mentioned this at the very start of today's discussion, is Australia is world-class when it comes to the development of novel research and development. TRL levels 1 to 5, basically. And then when it comes to the final place, which is the commercialization of those technologies, we are not so great. So, for example, the Australian government invests hundreds of millions of dollars each year into the development, into research infrastructure, which allows us to actually undertake research for researchers from industry and from academia to undertake this world-class research to create novel intellectual property. But it's only in the last 18 months to 2 years that we're hearing that perhaps some of that actually needs to be devoted to infrastructure that allows people to take this novel intellectual property through the final TRL levels and mean that hopefully we can actually benefit from the commercialization of this technology. When I went through Canada on my way to actually Europe to have a look into these kinds of things, they were saying things to us, oh, look, thank you so much for all the work, effort, and hundreds of millions of dollars that you've invested in the creation of these emerging industries. They're not being able to get access to the infrastructure that they need now in Australia, and they're now coming to us because we've decided to invest in this place. When you think about where we are on this journey of getting novel intellectual property commercialized, it's concerning that an area that we are global leaders at mightn't get access to the facilities, access to money, and all sorts of other things here in Australia,
Wow.
and that they're actually going overseas now to get this finalized. It's a long story that happens again and again and again. And the key thing that's with quantum is whoever wins the quantum race is going to win pretty much the world in some respects. If you can get quantum computers up and running, they can literally waltz through. And we already have some of these models. You can already get access for quantum computing through IBM and other providers. But we have some fantastic quantum companies here in Australia. But if you actually get them up and running, essentially it makes most modern encryption superfluous. They'll just waltz through it. So quite often you'll hear, with this type of encryption, it would take a supercomputer, this number of centuries to crack a code this big. Quantum computers would basically do that in a couple of minutes to an hour. So effectively, when we think about geopolitics and the people out there who are playing in that realm, it's really not only just a race for technology in the sense of benefiting jobs and new industries here for Australia. It has significant geopolitical implications as well too. So it was interesting to see that many of the countries around the world are spending billions in this space to make certain that with regards to quantum, that they're going to have access to these commercial facilities to accelerate them and come up with the industries of the future. With semiconductors, there was a recognition because of geopolitics at the time between China and Taiwan is the world's biggest producer of high-end microchips as semiconductors. So a lot of other semiconductors.
I think for a while there, they were 100% of the market.
Yes,
basically. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company.
Absolutely. But you're now seeing literally hundreds of billions of dollars worth of investment going into Europe and the United States for these semiconductor fabrication facilities to try and mitigate the risk of having, and a lot of this is actually out of Taiwan, to try and mitigate the risk that this critical technology, which would basically send us back almost to the Stone Age if suddenly we lost this capability, to try and make certain that that capability is de-risk and make sure it's spread more globally as well too. And again, so what we're seeing in Denmark, and this is a fascinating story as well too, Denmark is a country which has pretty much almost completed their decarbonisation. When I actually arrived at the facilities which I was going to tour looking at their semiconductor production and research facilities, they were actually getting notifications on their mobile phones saying that from 2 p.m. this afternoon, the wind generators were rotating so quickly that everyone in Denmark was about to get free electricity to turn everything on if you needed to charge things. But they've also had to change for the high-end manufacturing types of things with a recognition that renewable energy is not as reliable and consistent with regards to the existing energy infrastructure out there. So they've had to install significant battery banks, not because they're worried about not having electricity, but rather to smooth out and make certain there's a security of supply when dealing with this high-end technology. There's so many different stories that I can talk to about in this space. But it's just fascinating and understanding.
I think what you're saying, though, is what is happening around the world is kind of unknown here, where the innovations that we're thinking about are not necessarily what the world is thinking about, and that puts
absolutely
us behind the 8 ball, probably.
Absolutely. And we actually have just completed, Jeff in the last podcast would have mentioned our most recent industry survey. This is the first year where we actually have taken a specific focus on innovation, and some of the innovation data that has come out of that is absolutely fascinating with regards to what's making innovation occur in our companies or what's actually preventing them. And I won't go into that because we certainly will be sharing that a little later this year. But it's not that companies in Australia don't want to innovate. It's just the level of business uncertainty and transformation that is going underway means that executive teams are very focused and grappling with making sure the business is going to be here in 3 years, let alone actually have the products they need to be selling.
The challenge of balancing business as usual with changing markets and softening demand and inflation, and then say, well, let's innovate as well. It's tough. We should go to a break. Before we go to a break, what is after 15 years of being innovation, is there one story you always tell? What's that favourite innovation? What's the one that just makes you think, oh, that's just staggering? Whilst you think about that, I'll tell you what, my one is just how amazing life is now. My dad's been dead for about 15 years, but he was a man that used to always say, as that generation did, what will they think of next? And one day I was watching a rugby league game between my team, the Brisbane Broncos, and the New Zealand Warriors, and they're in New Zealand, and I was watching it live in beautiful colour, and that alone is amazing technology. But whilst that was happening, the pizza that I'd ordered was coming down the street, and according to my phone, I could see my pizza being delivered. And I was actually on the phone again ordering a tour through Alcatraz, because I was going there in a couple of months. And I looked out the window and I'm thinking, this is just amazing technology. My life is so good. I looked out the windows and I saw my friends at my barbecue area. You've been to my place. My friends were arguing over what the song was that was being played. So they hit Shazam and got told. And I think we live in amazing, we don't understand the technology that we live in anymore. It's now just life, but it is still staggering, David. It is staggering. So that's the whole story of innovation is incredible for me. What about you?
I think when I had that moment recently, and it's a moment that I have a number of times, is when Louise, our amazing leader, and I were on our way to Perth. We were both in two separate planes. She was flying out of Melbourne and I was flying out of Sydney on our way to Perth. And in real time, through Wi-Fi on the planes for free, we were working on key documents for a presentation that we had to provide later that week.
Working on the documents, yeah. Wow.
So we, and you know, but it just blew my mind that for free, I was sitting on a plane that was sending the data to a satellite that was being bounced to the ground, that when then bounced to her plane, back through. It was just all in real time, all for free. And I remember there wasn't, you know, I'm old enough to remember when I had to ring my grandmother on a Sunday night with a proper dial-up phone because that was the cheapest time. And now I was literally flying across the country at 12 kilometres above the ground, talking to my boss in real time as we both worked on a presentation. And that's just normal. With regards to novel innovations that are memorable for me.
And just keep in mind my comment about that pace of change will never be so slow as it is at the moment. I'm like, it seems to us it's really fast, but it's going to get faster and faster. So yeah, novel innovation, yeah. My most memorable stories are actually around regional Australia.
And I have three very quick ones.
You're talking my language, yeah.
Yeah, I know. The first was a fellow in Darwin whose crocodiles had caught a terrible case of herpes. And he was looking for someone to come in and understand why they had managed to capture this, because obviously having your skins with this particular disease is of concern. And they determined that the crocodiles had a terrible case of depression. And after they had spent some time with a crocodile, and just like cold sores, they actually had an outbreak. And what they worked out is that after speaking with a crocodile psychologist, they are able to determine that the crocodiles were a bit stressed because of their close proximity and differences in size. So they put the small crocodiles with the small crocodiles and the big ones with the big ones. Everyone relaxed, and just like a bad cold sore, it all went away. My second story that I love is from northern Queensland, and they're around and they're kicking butt still, is Natural Evolution Foods. And they're the people that came up with a flour that they actually sell today based on throwaway green bananas because Woolies and Coles and other people wouldn't take them.
Oh, I remember you telling this story. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the fellow walked out and looked at the pile of waste bananas and saw there was wallabies that looked like they'd been pumping iron for a couple of years. They were super muscly and their glossy coats, and he was like, "What's going on here?"
Why
and
then he noticed,
why are they so musky? And then he noticed they were eating the green bananas, and he got it tested. And they are one of the highest sources for particular types of fiber, and they have serotonin on all these amazing practicals. And he just got down and dirty, and he crammed a way of actually creating flour that preserved these capabilities in it. And my final one is actually one here in Queensland, where they sold the gas out of a sugar cane to cows in Japan with a terrible case of constipation. And they came up with a novel product that actually made sure the cows who didn't move much because it was winter and what they were fed to make them fatty, so they actually became more regular and they had a better quality of life. that I've seen viruses that can cure cancer. I've seen vaccines that can cure cancer. I've seen a whole range of clever things that occur here in Australia. So absolutely delightful.
Great stories. You certainly wouldn't want to be around when the cows cease to be constipated.
Well, no, but they looked much happier and they were much lighter afterwards, is my understanding. It was put in.
Yeah, that was the lone man on the farm would go have to clean that mess up. Yeah. Actually, your wander around the country reminded me. We've been colleagues for a long time. Reminded me of when you and I were in Darwin, and it was, as always, very warm and humid. I'm 6'2". You're a tall man, and for reasons unknown, you had hired the smallest possible car, and we were. We were jammed into this two big guys in this small car driving around humid Darwin. Yeah, good memories. Let's take a break and we'll be back in a minute. Let's talk more about what businesses can do to be more innovative.
If you have supply chain or business improvement challenges, contact AI Group's Business Improvement and Growth Hub. The Big Hub is a library of practical and relevant resources designed to assist member businesses to grow and improve. The Big Hub also includes an extensive network of experienced, pre-qualified business improvement consultants. For more details, contact big@aigroup.com.au. That's big@aigroup.com.au.
David, the challenge for established businesses is often in identifying and implementing innovations from all the stuff they've got available to them. But the challenge is that quite often the new businesses, the startup businesses, start with a whole new approach to it. They don't have all the information that the established businesses do, but they have a different approach and perhaps are more reactive and can be successful in a rapidly changing market. How do you address that?
That is a superb question, and it's where to actually start. And there's two places that I think that businesses that are looking to become more innovative need to actually start with regards to this area. The first is putting your customers in the center of your innovation and what you want to actually do to this. So how do they actually want to be communicated with? How do they actually want to work with you? Is it how do you want to delight them with your product, services, and their experience of actually collaborating with you? So actually the very first thing you need to do is actually go and obtain an intimate understanding of your clients and what's keeping them awake at night. And it's fascinating the number of times I've spoken to sales teams and said, tell me about your customers. And they say, oh, we know them very well. But when you actually sit down with them and say what's going on with them, they've got some significant challenges in their lives and within their businesses and a whole range of other things. So the first thing, before even talking about innovative solutions, technologies, business models, the first thing I would recommend is a client actually sit down with their 10 most important clients and just simply say, what's keeping you awake at night and how could we delight you? And from that, you will get...
I think that's a good point, though, and that's what David Schlepper was talking about, because there is the counter-argument there is Henry Ford, I think it was, said that if I'd asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster stagecoach rather than a completely innovative solution. I don't know if he said that or not, but it's a nice metaphor, I guess. But
it's absolutely attributed to him.
But what the other David was saying is that you've got to ask the right questions. You've got to try and figure out what you said is what problems are they trying to solve? What's keeping them awake? Not ask them what do they want. Ask them what the issue is. Yeah.
And more importantly, if you do have the resources, get someone to go along and observe them using your products, services, and other things. Because quite often people, and you've just nailed it from what David has said to say, people will say we're like a horse that eats less hay and is 50% more efficient, all the rest of it, rather than a car. But what is absolutely fascinating is not only taking the time to intimately understand what your customers are saying, but by actually observing them using your products and services, you'll actually find out they're using it usually in a way that you weren't expecting. And you can actually go away and say, well, actually, I found them doing this. They didn't actually use this section and this section, and where they actually want help is this particular area. So that's the first thing. So go away and put your clients and customers in the actual center of everything that you want to do before you start on actually undertaking innovation in your business and somehow. Because the next thing is actually then taking a stock take of everything you actually have in the business, how you actually undertake your business, what assets and all the rest of those types of things, and take the time to think about how you can actually continue to delight those customers. And the reason I say that is most people go, we need an innovative product. We need an innovative process. We need to become more efficient. We need to reduce our overheads. And a lot of time and effort and money is actually spent on new business products and processes. And you know that a large number of those will fail. But the research shows, and there's any number of books that show the business model transformation and innovation and how you deliver your existing products and services usually has a greater rate of return for your business, and basically a greater rate of return on the investment that you do in changing it. So when we talk about and the final thing I would say too is that if you're looking to be innovative in your business and you've never done it before, don't try and change the world all at once. Start small, make mistakes, and then learn from those. And so absolutely, those three things. So the first thing, put your customer in the center of your process. 2, gauge what investment assets and other things that you have with regards to and the type of transformation innovation you need to bring into the business. And the third thing is start small. If you are looking to innovation to save the business because things are that dire, that's not the right mindset to be going into it. Experiment with small changes, learn from them before you grow on them over time, and truly basically be successful at the end of it.
I would add into that mix, acknowledging you're the expert, I'd just throw into that mix that your suppliers might also have some real insights to you. They're often the expert in whatever you're buying. I worked with a bus manufacturing company for a while, and they were buying in windows, glass windows. But the people that manufacture the glass windows were absolute experts in this area, and they were saying, "You're not doing it right. There's a better way." I've actually been around the world. I've seen other companies do it, and it was a real source of insight to them when we said, "Go talk to your suppliers and see if they can help you."
Absolutely. I think that's also, I might also say, one of the pressures that you will see in a lot of media in Australia is that to become more innovative as a company, you should be partnering with people like research organizations, universities, and other people like that. I think that universities can be immensely powerful partners for the right type of companies, for the right types of jobs. But generally, when people come to me who start on this journey, I say that this is the order that you go in if you're looking to create innovative things in your company. Start internally. With your innovations, research, and the other things that you want to do with regards to this. If you can't do it internally, partner with an engineering firm down the road or someone else who has the expertise that they can bring in, because that allows you to keep the intellectual property and teach your staff and learnings. And in many cases, in the last case, we've reached out to universities with regards to them undertaking world-class research. And then progressing that through to an innovative product, service, or way of doing things. I think there's also something that people have to be comfortable with, which is by its nature, innovation and R&D involves failure. Research and development, in many respects, the first part of the innovation journey, there's actually a lot of failure involved. And, if we're talking about analogies, there was Thomas Edison who said, I did 100 different ways of producing a light bulb. 99 of those were failures. And I actually basically learned how not to do it because I kept building on what I'd done before. So research, innovation, all the things that if you're starting to do that in a company, start with those three things, which is put the customer in the center of it, understand what assets you have and availability to fund what you need to get done, and then investment in the area of rate of return, and start small and build on success rather than starting big and coming away wondering what happened.
Wise words. The other part of your title is emerging industries. What's that? You started to talk about it before. Just build on that a little bit more. So
the emerging industries is the reason I've got that title in my name is for 2 reasons. The first is, as we've been discussing in the podcast, is a primary focus for Australian Industry Group is how might we assist our members to emerge from their previous business models to new business models that allows them to survive and thrive in a world that is currently being ruled by the 3 Ds, which you've discussed many times on this podcast. The second thing is that quite often with emerging industries such as quantum, such as biotech, such as so many different areas, there's a lot of hype and a lot of language that is confusing. And, if you manufacture sheds to the west of Mackay and you're world class at doing that, you'll probably go, well, why is quantum important to me? I have no idea. And quantum is important to you because it will drive efficiencies in supply chains. It will drive how you keep secure from a cybersecurity perspective. And part of my role really is to focus on running a series of workshops going into this year with world-class speakers, demystifying a lot of these novel technologies and things that we're hearing out here at the moment so that our businesses and members can take a step back and understand how it might fit into their organisation and businesses moving forward and how they could potentially leverage these to increase the level of productivity and challenges that they're facing at the moment.
Tell me about Future Map, because that's one of the things that you're involved in as well.
Absolutely. So not only is Australian industry groups are looking to assist people with emerging industries and the take-up of novel technologies, we're eating our own cooking, so to speak. So Future Map is intellectual property that came out of the Innovative Manufacturing CRC, which AI Group was a strong partner of for many years. It was recognition that it was a joint venture between the Department of Industry, the CRC, the Advanced Manufacturing Growth Centre and Industry, with recognition that the fourth industrial revolution and the changes that we've been talking about today, many people in the manufacturing sector didn't know where to start when taking on this digitalisation of manufacturing and transformation of their business model. And that's with regards to innovation, technology, leadership, and a range of things. So Future Map has now been provided to Australian Industry Group post the wind-up of the IMCRC to commercialise and take forward. So we're basically in the process of making this diagnostic, which our members and industry at large can undertake, either through us or with our partners, as part of a workshop, an opportunity for the executive and for senior management to have that objective understanding of their business and understand where they might be on their journey. So currently there are two diagnostics. One is explicitly focused on digitalisation. The other is on your journey to net zero. But both provide the organisation and those who participate a free report at the conclusion of it that provides them an understanding of where they are now, where they would like to be in the future, and a series of resources that allows them to read further into areas that they might like to focus on with regards to their organisation. It's basically that commencement of the journey that I was talking about that many executives and many at the board level are challenged by about where do we actually start? Where are our strengths? Where do we need to focus on and what are our next steps? So it's not it's not something that will say, well, you need to invest in robotics. Rather, it is what does your business model look like in the future, which I've said a number of times, which may involve automation and robotics, or other types of technology or other solutions so you can continue to delight your customers and other people out there.
How do people listening, board members, senior managers, the smart operators, the owners of businesses, how do they find out about all this? It sounds like to me that if I was listening to this for the first time, and I'm not, and I'm still amazed by it, but if I was listening the first time, I'd be saying, how do I find out more? What's my next step?
If you're a AI Group member, we're just about to launch something called the Emerging Industries Council in the next couple of weeks. And that's actually going to provide guidance to Australian Industry Group about what technologies and information we should be sharing with our members and industry at large with regards to productivity gains and technology and those kinds of things. So we're certainly, AI Group is looking to lead in this particular space because time is now running out and you really need to start undergoing this transformation. You can't sit on your hands. So it's about educating people on this type of stuff and helping on those things. We also do have an amazing team of consultants that can have these discussions with your industry people as well too. That's led by Christian in our WA office as well too. If you're interested in learning more about innovation, there's a significant number of resources out there that you can read on with regards to types of content that might be of interest to you. So the first thing is Australia actually has a number of healthy industry associations that give you particular focuses on expertise, such as artificial intelligence. So, for example, CSIRO is partnering with AI Group on a number of workshops nationally where our members and other people will be invited to participate and learn about how you actually apply artificial intelligence in your organisation, in your business model. What we find interesting is actually we're not asking the innovation champions from those organisations to go to those workshops, but rather people who look after occupational health and safety because they tend to have a more pragmatic view about what's going on. And what we find is that in many respects, people are more excited about the box counting computer than they are about necessarily building spaceships with augmented reality. And, which is very fun, but, they go, well, with that robot that goes around the factory, we can take four people that would normally do this and apply them in other places in the organisation.
So is it via the website, do you think? Is it the best place to
Absolutely.
go? Absolutely.
So to go to AI Group's website, but Yeah, look, you will also find an enormous amount of content and information on LinkedIn. There's a number of organisations that are sharing what's happening in innovation in Australia. I'll do a big shout out if you're really interested in deep tech. Cicada Innovations is outstanding. It's one of the world's best deep tech incubators. Absolutely. And also the Australian government quite regularly holds workshops nationally with focuses on new technology, net zero, and a range of other things, which you can certainly go along for either for free or for a very small amount of money that will help you educate these kinds of things. I think there's one other thing, which is, it's all well and good to say there's all these resources out there, but when you're a business owner who's juggling 3 flaming torches, a chainsaw and other things at the moment, sometimes the easiest option is simply to go to Google News. So what you can actually do to Google News is actually curate and create your own newsletter looking at topics of interest to you. And each day from newspapers around the world or specifically in Australia, you will get a newsletter sent to your email box that will cover off on innovative and interesting news articles that you can quickly read through that will get you up to speed on topic areas that you might be interested in as well too. So, for example, I quite often have some newsletters in place where I'm looking at specific technologies and specific companies that I'm interested in following. And whenever someone speaks or there's a press release or something interesting in that particular area, it gets delivered straight away to my inbox and I can read that at my leisure.
What a good tip. I like that. We should wrap up. What's next for you? Are you travelling soon? Are you back to the Qantas clubs and the flights across Australia? Around the world?
Again, AI Group likes us to eat our own cooking, so we do our best to reduce emissions and costs by using Teams and other things where possible. But my 2 big focuses in the next 4 weeks is I will be travelling to Melbourne to launch our Emerging Industries Council, which I'm very excited about. I'll be following up with actually a Future Map workshop that's going to be run for the defence sector in Sydney. And I'll also be going to an ASEAN conference as well to share and get a more intimate understanding of what's going on in the small to medium enterprise area with regards to the 3Ds and how we can lean in and help.
Fantastic. Sounds like we might have to have you back on at some stage and find out how we're going, how you're going, and just have another good chat. I've really enjoyed this.
I would be absolutely delighted, James. If there's one message that I would say to people is that now is the time they really need to take that objective step back and look at where they want to be in the future. Innovation, there's a lot of froth and bubble and theatre, but really what it comes down to is those 3 key points, which is put your customer in the centre of your organisation and understand what they need to remain your customer. Think about how you're actually going to achieve that. Start taking small steps now, and you should be okay.
What a great place to finish. Actually, we can't finish there. We have to ask the question that's everyone's wondering. What does the K stand for in David K. Martin?
Oh, Kenneth is my grandfather's name.
Oh, nice.
So absolutely.
Well, thank you, David K. Martin. It's been great having you on the show. Full of information, lots of nuggets, and we've had a bit of fun, as we said. So thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's it for another episode of Supply Circles. Thanks again to everyone for listening, and thank you for your feedback. I love getting your feedback. If you have any feedback on today's interview with David, or comments or ideas for the show, or you just want to give me some feedback, hit me up at james.scotland@aigroup.com.au. That's just one T, james.scotland@aigroup.com.au, or at my LinkedIn page. I'd love to hear from you. And we'll be back in a fortnight with more business improvement insights into the keys to building sustainable supply chains. Thank you for joining me. This is Supply Circles. I am James Scotland. Bye for now.